Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today is February 5th, 2026, and I have to be honest with you. If you've just been watching the normal news cycle for the last, say, 48 hours, you might be feeling a little, I don't know, disoriented, maybe even confused.
Oh, definitely. It's one of those specific weeks where history doesn't just, inch forward. It takes this massive leap.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about President Erdogan touching down in Riyadh and Cairo just yesterday and the day before.
February 3rd and 4th.
And the photos coming out of these meetings, they aren't just polite handshakes. They look like victory laps.
They are victory laps.
So to help us all make sense of this, we're digging into a brand new intelligence report that just landed on our desks. It's titled Turkey's Strategic Realignment, a Bayesian Game Theoretic Assessment, 2026-2030, by Fareed Novin.
Right.
Now, I know Bayesian game theoretic sounds incredibly academic, like something you'd sleep through in grad school.
It does. But, to clarify for everyone, when we say Bayesian in the intel world, we're not just talking about guessing. It's a way of forecasting where you constantly update your probabilities. You use new, hard evidence. You don't just stick to your old assumptions.
And this report is saying the old assumptions are basically trash.
Completely. And the biggest old assumption it's throwing out is this idea of Turkey as the bridge between East and West.
That's dead.
That story is dead. It's a funeral for the bridge metaphor. The report argues, and pretty convincingly, that as of this week, Turkey has effectively promoted itself. It's no longer a bridge. It's an autonomous regional manager.
The regional manager. It sounds so corporate, almost bureaucratic,
Yeah.
but the implications are. They're military and geopolitical, right?
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to unpack these massive agreements, figure out what this new management style means for the region, and honestly, ask the hard question. How is Turkey paying for all this?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Let's start with what the report calls the funeral for the bridge. And we have to talk about Egypt, because for anyone who's followed this region since, I don't know, the Arab Spring, the idea of Turkey and Egypt getting along seems, well, impossible.
It was. If you rewind to what the report calls Phase I, so that's 2011 to 2017, Ankara and Cairo were bitter rivals.
Mortal enemies.
Absolutely. Turkey supported the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt's leadership saw them as an existential threat. They were actively working to undermine each other. It was an ideological Cold War.
Right. And now, fast forward to yesterday, February 4th, Erdogan's in Cairo, and they sign, 18 bilateral agreements.
18. And these aren't just, trade deals for cotton. The centerpiece here is the Framework Military Cooperation Agreement. This is the real game changer.
The report mentions a Mediterranean Defense Industrial Complex. That sounds huge, but what are they actually building?
They're building a joint facility on the Egyptian coast. And they're not just sewing uniforms. They are co-producing warships and drones, specifically the VTOUAV Torga.
Okay, wait, the Torga. Why does the report single out that specific drone? I feel like I hear about a new drone every week.
This one matters because it's a vertical takeoff and landing drone.
So it launches like a helicopter.
Exactly, but flies like a plane. It's designed specifically for naval platforms for ships that don't have massive runways.
So it effectively turns smaller ships into drone carriers.
You got it. By sharing this specific technology, Turkey is giving the Egyptian Navy a massive tactical edge in the Mediterranean. Sharing that kind of tech shows a level of trust that was, it was at absolute zero just a few years back.
But how do we know this isn't just a fling? These things can fall apart pretty quickly in the Middle East.
That's where the Bayesian part of the analysis is so interesting. Based on the depth of these contracts, the money committed, the factories being planned, the source assigns an 82% probability to sustain coordination through 2027.
82%.
In intelligence forecasting. That's basically cement drying. It suggests the structural incentives are locked in. They need each other now.
So if Turkey and Egypt are now militarily linked, who loses? Who does this hurt?
Well, just think about the map. For years, there was this anti-Turkey coalition in the Eastern Med.
Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and Egypt.
And Egypt was the linchpin. They were the buffer. They created the East Med Gas Forum specifically to route energy to Europe while cutting Turkey out.
And now the buffer is building Turkish drones.
The buffer has defected. The report is blunt about it. The East Med Gas Forum is functionally obsolete. Greece cannot rely on Egypt anymore.
We'll get back to Greece because they really seem to be the big loser here. But first, the other leg of this trip. Riyadh, February 3rd.
The Saudi connection. If Egypt is the muscle, Saudi Arabia is the wallet.
So the report mentions energy integration. Is this just about Turkey getting cheap oil?
Well, it's favorable oil pricing to help with their inflation, yes, but it's deeper than that. They're setting up petrochemical joint ventures, and crucially, Turkey is locking down defense export deals for the entire Gulf. They're also coordinating positions on Gaza, on Sudan, on Iran. It's a full spectrum alignment.
So, Turkey provides the military tech, Saudi Arabia provides the capital, and Egypt provides the strategic geography.
That's the triad. And it lets Turkey operate independently of Western finance or, Western military permission. It's a closed loop.
Speaking of operating independently,
hmm
this brings us to probably the wildest part of this whole report, this new security architecture,
The SMDA.
the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of this acronym before. Is this new?
It's flown under the radar for a lot of people, and I think that's by design. The West wasn't invited. It was originally signed between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan back in September 2025.
But Turkey's joining.
The report says Turkey is finalizing its accession with a 71% probability by the third quarter of this year.
And there's a clause in there that made my jaw drop.
The Mutual Defense Clause. An attack on one is an attack on all.
That sounds a lot like NATO's Article 5.
It's exactly like Article 5, but here's the kicker. It's outside of NATO. This gives Turkey a security guarantee that doesn't depend on a phone call to Brussels or Washington.
So let's play this out. Turkey is in NATO, but they're also about to join this. Middle Eastern NATO with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. What does Pakistan bring to the table?
Nuclear deterrence signaling. That's the specific phrase the report uses. Pakistan is a nuclear power.
So Turkey gets a nuclear umbrella without having to build a bomb and face sanctions.
Precisely. It's hedging your bets on a massive scale. It creates ambiguity. If you mess with Turkey, who responds? Is it NATO? Is it the SMDA? Or both?
But then there's this other thing. The Board of Peace.
Ah, yes.
I honestly thought this was a typo when I first read it. Or maybe satire.
It does sound like fiction, doesn't it?
The Board of Peace.
Yeah.
Launched just last month, January 2026. And the chairman is,
Donald Trump?
of course, with veto power.
Leave veto power, yes.
Right.
And the authority to designate his successor. It's a very peculiar entity.
And it has 19 nations, including Turkey, Egypt, Pakistan, the Saudis.
But not the UK, not France, not Germany.
No, it explicitly excludes the traditional Western European powers.
It's an alternative club.
Is this thing functional? Is it real?
Well, the report notes it has severe institutional fragility. It only gives it an 18% chance of surviving past a Trump presidency.
So probably not built to last. Why would a serious state like Turkey even bother joining?
Because for right now, it serves a crucial purpose. It legitimizes their role as regional manager. It gives them a forum to coordinate with their new allies without the U.S. State Department breathing down their necks while still having that direct line to Trump.
It cuts out all the bureaucracy.
It cuts out the rule. It allows for pure transaction. I give you this, you give me that, without worrying about congressional oversight.
Okay, so we have the alliances, we have the board. Now let's talk about where this power is actually going. Because when I looked at the map in this report, my eyes went straight to Somalia.
This was the aha moment for you.
It really was. I mean, I knew Turkey was active in Africa.
Yeah.
But spaceport.
Yes. The equatorial spaceport near Kismayo. Construction started just last month. It's a huge site, 900 square kilometers.
What are they doing there? Is Turkey trying to go to Mars?
Officially, it's for satellite launches. Turkey wants its own independent GPS and comms network, but the report specifies it's also for testing ballistic missiles.
What kind of range?
Up to 2,000 kilometers.
Wow. That covers, well, just about everyone in the region.
It does. And geography is key here. Launching from the equator is more efficient physically, but strategically, having a missile test site in the Horn of Africa, far away from European neighbors, that's a huge capability. It's basically an unmonitored backyard.
And they have the port there, too, the Hobyo port.
An 80-year operational lease. They're essentially building a sovereign Turkish enclave in Somalia.
And it's not just Somalia. The report connects us to Libya and Sudan. It calls it the Red Sea Indian Ocean Corridor.
Right. Look at the map. Turkey controls Al Watiya Air Base in Libya. That's the Med. They're using drone diplomacy in Sudan alongside the Saudis. And then they have Somalia on the Indian Ocean.
They're encircling the entire region.
Militarily and commercially. It effectively outflanks that rival axis the report talks about, the UAE, Ethiopia, and Israel.
This is a lot of power projection for a country with, let's be honest, some serious economic issues at home. But before we get to the money, Greece.
The Greek dilemma.
The report outlines these game theory scenarios. Scenario gamma and scenario beta. Can you break those down?
So scenario gamma is the escalation path. The idea is that because Greece is now isolated, with Egypt gone, Turkey will push the envelope.
Ooh,
It
yeah.
predicts a maritime standoff. Turkey sends gas exploration vessels into contested waters, escorted by the Navy, and basically dares Greece to shoot first.
And since Egypt won't back them up,
Greece is alone. The report gives a 32% chance of a maritime incident needing NATO mediation this year. That's a 1 in 3 chance of a clash between two NATO allies.
which puts NATO in the worst position imaginable.
Terrible. Because remember the Board of Peace, remember the transactional nature of things now. If you're Athens, that Article 5 guarantee suddenly feels a lot wobblier.
A chilling thought. And then there's the whole F-35 versus S-400 drama. I thought that was a done deal. Turkey was out.
It's the great Gordian knot of U.S.-Turkey relations. Turkey paid $1.4 billion for the jets, then got kicked out for buying the Russian S-400 missile system.
But the report says there's a fix in the works.
Potentially. It cites the U.S. ambassador, Tom Barrack, saying F-35 access could be resolved in 4 to 6 months.
How? Did they get rid of the Russian missiles?
The compromise is to mothball them.
Mothball, so just keep them in storage.
Yeah, don't turn the radars on. The U.S. might accept that as compliance. In return, Turkey gets the F-35s, but, and here's the catch,
There's always a catch.
with downgraded avionics.
What does that mean in practice? They get a dumber plane.
It means they get the stealth body, the airframe, the engine, but
Right.
maybe not the latest software, maybe not full integration into the NATO data link.
An F-35 light.
In a sense. But for Turkey, that might be good enough, and for the U.S., the alternative is worse.
What's the alternative?
The report gives a 74% probability that if the U.S. says no, Turkey just walks away and buys Eurofighter Typhoons from the U.K. instead.
So they get their advanced jets either way.
They get their jets either way. And if they buy Eurofighters, the U.S. loses all leverage over the Turkish Air Force for the next 40 years. It's damage control.
It really feels like Turkey holds all the cards. But, and this is the big but, the economy.
The Achilles heel.
You can't eat drones. You can't pay rent with a spaceport. I looked at the numbers. Inflation was around 65% in January. External debt over $450 billion. Usually a country in that state retreats.
That's the conventional wisdom. But the argument here is that the geopolitical pivot is the economic fix.
How does that work? How does a drone deal fix the price of bread in Istanbul?
It's about cash flow and resource costs. Why align with Saudi Arabia? You get favorable oil pricing. That lowers energy costs for the entire country. Why align with Egypt?
Cheap labor.
Cheap labor and energy to manufacture goods that Turkey can then export, which helps their trade balance. And of course, you still have Qatar for direct cash injections.
So the foreign policy is basically a fundraising tour.
It's about securing resources to keep the domestic economy afloat without having to go to the IMF.
Because the IMF would be the end of this autonomy project.
Exactly. The IMF would impose conditions. They'd say, stop spending money on spaceports, balance your books. That kills the whole strategic vision.
The report does mention a red line, though, a danger zone.
It does. It says if inflation stays above 20% by 2028, they might be forced into an IMF bailout anyway. The math just won't work forever.
So it's a race against time. Can the geopolitical wins pay off before the debt comes due?
That is the central gamble. It's high-stakes poker.
Okay, let's step back. We've gone from ideological overreach in 2011 to strategic consolidation in 2026. Turkey has hedged its bets perfectly. They're in NATO, the SMDA, the Board of Peace.
They've diversified their portfolio of alliances. And the conclusion for the G7 is pretty stark. You have a binary choice. Adapt to Turkey being an independent power, or accept losing influence in the region entirely.
The era of dictating terms to Ankara is over.
Completely. You can't threaten them with isolation if they aren't isolated anymore. They've built their own club.
And that brings me to the final provocative thought the report leaves us with. This one's really been spinning in my head.
The BRICS angle.
Turkey has observer status in the SPO, and they've shown serious interest in BRICS. We've said the Board of Peace is a waiting room. What if the West pushes too hard on, say, the Greek maritime disputes? Could we see a NATO member formally join a rival economic bloc?
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for Washington. Imagine a country that's covered by NATO's Article 5 protection.
But is economically integrated into a Chinese and Russian-led bloc.
And militarily aligned with Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, it breaks the entire post-Cold War model. We used to think you were either West or East.
Turkey is proving you can be all of the above.
If you play your cards right, and if you have the nerve to pull it off.
A fascinating, if slightly terrifying, look at the world of 2026. We will be watching those inflation numbers very, very closely. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.